Hi, it's Nicole Banks with Nicole's Business Notebook, where I interview my business besties from the greater Phoenix Valley and beyond so that we can all learn from each other, learn what we're doing, and how we can work better together. This week, I have Lynn Dang in the studio. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Hi, Nicole. My pleasure to be on the show today.
Awesome. Super excited. So, obviously, I'd love to start with your background. IV nutrition is a interesting business. So, kind of what got you started in health?
My background, I'm actually non-medical. My background is I spent years in as a financial statement auditor for PricewaterhouseCooper, and I transitioned over to pretty much my becoming entrepreneurship and exploring my inner self. And as I progressed the last 3 years, I have also a pre-med background, but over the last 3 years, my health started deteriorating, and that left me trying to find alternative steps to help my health self heal and recover. So that led me to IV therapy, and in the process of trying to find answer for myself and trying to compare and contrast, kind of know more of the weed, felt intrigued in trying to help others who are suffering through that journey or trying to prevent. Take a more preventive step, and so that's how I got and became an owner of IV Nutrition Gilbert.
It's amazing. So, obviously, a lot of us have transitioned from corporate jobs to entrepreneurship. How did you feel called to make that transition, and how was it for you?
Um, So I've always been in the service industry because I love the interaction with people and talking to people, and I love the sharing of information. But over time, I felt like I was missing something. And then when I hit like 35, I noticed everything. I've more become more a passion of what trying to fix myself and the journey. So with a background in financial statement auditing like for all the SEC's client, you kind of have a edge on like knowing stuff already. But then when you truly jumped to become entrepreneurship, luckily I still have my full-time job that was paying initially when I first did my jumped out. So I wasn't too stressed about money, but it was more of just trying to find the little, like you're doing everything yourself
Hmm.
versus, you have somebody who ABC, your EA do this or this person does that. So you're the you do every single hat,
Hmm.
and you have to decide when. um, so at first you have to be more well-rounded and like are willing to like get in the weed and do everything, and then when you grow enough you have to realize, okay, I'm at a good phase, I need to start hiring and do this, so I'm not killing myself. But
Yeah.
that's the initial phase.
Yeah, definitely a big transition. So when we're talking about, switching into entrepreneurship, there's kind of two different houses. One is you go full into entrepreneurship, no
Hmm.
safety net, heck or
Hmm.
high water, you're going to do the thing.
Yeah.
And then there's a way that you did where you had that safety net, you had that transition. Both have their challenges. If you were to do it again, would you do it the same way or would you take the leap?
Very good question. I actually did both way. My first, I'm actually a multiple business owner. The first gig, I actually have the safety net with my full time job.
Hmm.
Then this round, when I opened IV Nutrition Gilbert, it's basically I call it God's timeline because I had planned to open this business in 2022, but I had a baby, so we were set back. But we had a lot of transition through, and this time around, I technically don't have a job that supports me. It was just my other business income supporting me in this business, and I felt the burden more this time around because you come in with a budget kind of idea how much everything's going to cost, but then sometimes it goes off the planning route and you end up like everything costing more than you anticipated and what you envisioned to be the perfect kind of plan A, plan B, plan C, and then it just totally run down. So I think both has its problem just depending on how you deal with. But I think if you can handle the stress, then the second route is okay. But I prefer the first route because then you'll have the less of the burden of like the stress that comes with like the financial. So depending how high risk tolerance you are and how high pressure you are can handle stress, the first route is probably the easier route to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, you talk to 100 people, you're going to get 100 different opinions. So
Correct.
I love your insight there, though. And I think, knowing yourself enough to know whether you're risk averse and how
Hmm.
you deal with stress and really, kind of planning for you and your mental health and your abilities throughout that process is something that maybe entrepreneurs aren't doing that they should. And so I think that that's a great reminder.
Yeah.
So, in this, you're working, in this business now. It's definitely, a change into entrepreneurship. How has your corporate career led you to be a better business owner now in this entrepreneurial journey?
I think I feel because my background is because I remember when I was going to school, I was dual biology and accounting business, and the my accounting professor told me there's two type of accounting. If you want to learn somebody how they make money, you basically or how they make money is you do their taxes. If you want them to know how they run their business, you audit their the company's financial statements, and you can see the different controls in place, and etc. So, with me auditing all the companies like the SEC, like the bigger companies and smaller companies in various industry, you kind of learn what they're doing well and what they suck at. So then you take that, and it helps me to become like I kind of know it more versus some, if you just have a like a corporate America job for other stuff, might not have that background in business. So then I feel it kind of gave me an edge.
Amazing. So in that, you're making that transition to, having your own business. You have the accounting background. Would you recommend that other, entrepreneurs have that accounting background? Are the numbers really that important for business?
For me, I think with now where we are at in this economy as well as in this era, I think the skill that you need to learn the most right now is you don't need to do the deep dive of all the accounting, but you do need to know the social media aspect because that is what's going to help your business the most. Versus accounting, you can actually know the high level and hire somebody to do it for you.
Hmm.
So I think what's really important is your adaptability and with the AI and all the social media, I think that's more what's going to help more as an entrepreneur versus like being deep, like for me, deep rooted in accounting. It helped me with like the savings and kind of get all the other stuff. And then tax saving strategies and stuff. But I think you can hire somebody for that.
Hmm.
But more of the social media, like because you are going to be representing your brand as well as driving the traffic as well. Kind of telling your social media manager, whoever you're going to hire, to like which way you want to go. So that's probably the most important.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a great reminder. Social media is so important, and you really can't run a business without it. But finding those opportunities to, give those projects to other service professionals,
Hmm.
it's all about what you're good at, what you need to work on, and what you're willing to work on. I think is the other part of it. So you mentioned your health journey towards the beginning of the episode. How has that affected your entrepreneurial journey?
Um, it made me real. Well, I started falling back after my first child when we got pregnant. It made me realize our body is it can put up with a lot, and you don't feel any of the symptoms at all. And then when you do hit like a wall, you just fall backward, and it takes forever to heal, and you just feel like crap. So as an entrepreneur, as person who's always thriving on high pressure, you forget that you have to take care of yourself. So that's what happened. So I health is very important, and that's what led me to IV Nutrition Gilbert because there are things we can do preventively to prevent a lot of the stuff that's happening. And being an entrepreneur, you're always under constant stress, and stress is one of the killing factor that helps. I mean, that causes a lot of the problems in our health. So
Yeah, I mean, I think, the important thing is, I think entrepreneurs are so focused on the hustle and building
yeah,
their business and, making sure that the results are what they're looking for, that they put themselves on the back burner.
correct.
And I love that, you're kind of stepping forward and saying, no, it's the most important thing and I'm going to do something about it. So for those that may be skeptical
Hmm.
about IV and IV therapies
Hmm.
and IV nutrition, can you tell me a little bit about kind of what inspired you to do this business, why it's been helpful for you?
I think what intrigued me and why I truly believe in it is because I came out of science background, so I'm very intrigued about science and what can your body do and what can anything can do, like more science based. And the concept is we go back to the concept of like your cell has two main role. It's either can um, fight inflammations or it can regenerate. And are we giving our body the chance to do that? And if you go back to all sources of chronic illnesses, is inflammation, and then before inflammation is oxidative stress. So you start with one single cell losing its one electron, and then it gets stressed, and then it passes on that to other cells. When it gets bigger and bigger, it becomes what we call inflammation, and then for a long period of time, it becomes chronic inflammation. So our body is naturally going through inflammation all the time, but how much inflammation becomes what we call an illnesses. And so if we can prevent the oxidative stress at the very source, we're preventing a lot of this other problems we can have. So that's what intrigued me about IV therapy and got me deep dive. But like I said, there are like some people say, "Oh, I feel it. I don't feel it." It's more of are you getting the right nutrients for your body and what doses, and then are they doing correctly? Your providers, like whoever you're going to see, is doing correctly because there are different ways, more hydration based or more nutrient based, or is it pre-made or is it not pre-made? Is it made fresh? Is it compound on the hood? There's a lot of nuances, but overall, the idea is should help you fix your current problems, but also prevent as well.
No, I think that's great. And those nuances you mentioned, as you're going through them, I'm like, wait, I never thought about any of that.
Mhm.
So really, from your perspective, are those nuances really that important? Does it really make that big of a difference? And why is IV nutrition and Gilbert a better solution than others?
For me, I really believe so because I've always been the type of person, no matter what I do, like my skincare product, anything I do, I always do a deep dive and do a comparison, like why should I spend my $200 with this place or that place or with this product or that product? Because especially if it's going to your bloodstream, it's so important, and I want to make my money worthwhile. Because we all work hard to earn the money. For example, we have high dose vitamins. So we have high dose vitamin C up to 100 grams, which is rare in the market. Usually it's like 25 is like the max. But people are like, why we need 100 grams of vitamin C? So we target a lot of like the inflammation, like cancer, high dose, autoimmune patients. So we help them provide alternative steps. But putting all those nutrients in a bag, the higher concentration, the more you'll feel the effect. But if it's nutrients are watered down after 12 hours of being made, it's like you cut your apple and you leave it outside, it gets oxidized.
Hmm.
Same thing with nutrients. Like if it's not made fresh and then people try to cut costs and make it in a pre-made bag and sell it, it's cheaper, but then you're not getting the full effect of the nutrients. Or if it's not high enough, for example, if you're really sick and usually we go either 7.5 grams or 12.5 grams, but if you're getting just 2 grams, you won't get that. You'll get better but not that fast. So it's more of how effective, efficient, and are you wanting that IV, as well as the quality of the ingredient too, because it could be a 503 pharmacy or 5A pharmacy. So there's a lot of in the weed. And how I got into it so much was because I was like trying to find the answer for myself, for my health. So I got in and did a comparison and do a lot of that stuff. Like we call it nuances, but it's how much you care about your health. And sometimes you don't have the time to do all that research. So that's why I kind of like in all my business, I kind of want to provide that trust level so that you have trust to that brand, trust to that person, so that they what they're doing is right for you and the best for you.
I love that. And why, when I think of IVs, I think of hydration and I
Hmm.
think of like the B12 boosts and, all
Yeah.
of those different things. I don't necessarily think about nutrition. So, can you dive further into that? Do you offer both? Is one better than the other? Do they each have their own merits? Can you explain that a little further?
Yes. So all of our hard bags are hydrating. We call it hydrating because it has the full liter of normal saline or the full liter of lactate ringers, which has the minerals and like the mags, the potassium, etc. But the next step is the nutrients, right? What nutrients do we put in the bag? It's the same concept where you think about like when we eat, it goes through our gut, and how much we absorb is how healthy our gut is. So it could be from 30 to 50% absorption. As we age, if we never heal our gut, it's put up with us for like what 30, 40, 50 years.
Yep.
It's going to get worse and worse because the lining, everything, it's not. optimal again. So the idea is we bypass that and put it in our bloodstream. And then people ask, well, how do you know how much you put in my bloodstream? And how do we pee it out, or is it, it's in the bloodstream? So you got to think of your body has the ability to either survive mode or thrive mode. So when you do a blood test, the doctor say you're not deficient, you're normal. It means you're in that zone where you're not deficient, but your range of green where you can thrive is very wide. So for example,
Mm.
vitamin D, if you're above 30, you're normal, you're not deficient, but you could be in 70 or 100, and which people usually don't care because doctors say, oh, you're normal. But if you're in that upper zone, it helps fix a lot of other stuff in your body. So you can thrive and be more feeling like greater. So if you put like B complex, B12, like all the different nutrients in a higher dose into your bloodstream, your body can actually take it, use it, and then repair itself. And then any excess, create that as a reserve. And then you can feel the jump in your body performance.
That's amazing. So, for a new client coming in to, work with you, who maybe like me has no
Mhm.
idea what they're doing, what's your recommendation? What suggestions do you give? What education can you, kind of walk me through that new client journey?
Correct. So when we come in, there's two type of client we see. One is, for example, if they're already sick with like cold, flu, or something, we ask for the symptom and usually just hit them with an immune boost and do a urine test or UA analysis to see if they have any kidney problems, any symptoms, any what their dehydration level is. That's just rule out a lot of stuff, so it's not within our parameter. Um, Once we find that out, we can kind of recommend the bags for them by based on the symptoms, like, hey, what you're feeling, your lack of sleep, you have no energy, what's the cause? We're trying to find the root cause of their issues. The other type is if they already have a blood test, they can send us the panel. We can customize to what they're deficient in and what we know what's wrong with them. Number two, also is number three is if there are those people who are like in the say, I want to know what's wrong with me. Something is wrong with me, but I can't tell what's wrong with me. My doctor say I'm normal. Something's off. We have functional blood panels that you can do a comprehensive on, and it does more testing than your normal doctor, like beyond like inflammation marker, hormones, and everything that usually you don't test for. We look at you as a whole from like every angle, and there is a functional health provider that can sit down and analyze and say, hey, this is where you're at. Even though you're normal, you can be more optimal, and this is maybe that's why you're feeling that way. So then we can tailor that IV towards fixing that problem. So there's two types. So either you're just wanting to fix like an easy fix, or you're the other type who wants to like really deep dive into the health. We have both routes for you to take.
I love that. I love that it's testing first,
Mm-hmm.
to really make sure that you are getting the results that are necessary. And I think that that makes you different from other IV solutions because it's more testing focused and more quote unquote real science. I think than
Yes.
just hey, I am hungover, help me. So I love that approach. So when we're talking about hydration, and you mentioned that the saline and the ringers and everything are in there,
Mm-hmm.
when you're talking about your competitors, what makes you different and why should people go to your organization rather than others?
Yeah. So, being given that, like I mentioned earlier, we are a high dosed clinic, and we are based on the functional approach. So we put a lot more stuff into our bags, as well as I mentioned earlier, we do blood tests, blood panels on site. So we're more trying to fix the issue versus probably the normal hydration level. And number two, we just added what we call a holistic approach. So we're utilizing sound and vibration energy. It's a vibroacoustic bed that helps with the emotion and the stress that's trapped in you, and the mental aspect too. So I noticed when I incorporate all that, it creates a different feeling, and we call it integrative healing because we're not just fixing your health, but we're fixing the emotion that's trapped and then the stress that's always like in your cells. So we activate the cells to release the stress and then also heal at the same time. So we see a difference in our the mood of our client as well as their health.
I think that's great. So, when you're talking about this, you have these other professionals. You're not a medical person yourself. So, how is it being a business owner in the health related field,
Hmm.
but then you're not really focused on, you yourself providing
Hmm.
as a provider? How does that work?
It comes down to hiring. So you have what you believe in. So how do you relay that message because you're not doing it and you can't you're kind of stranded, you're kind of hand tied on certain aspect. So it's very hard, very like as entrepreneurs, you have to learn how to hire the right people that's going to portray your message and get that whole branding out. So I'm very hard on hiring, and given that we're not medical, we're very dependent. Well, I'm not medical. I'm very dependent on my staff of certain things they have to be able to do. And besides their skill, like how's their soft skill? How are they gonna help you upsell? For example, we call it upsell, but it's not really upsell. It's like tell a client, hey, you need this versus like, oh, I don't need it. You kind of sort of thing, but they really
Hmm.
need it. So you do that in a caring way, or trying to teach or educate. So a lot of stuff beyond the normal of like at the hospital setting where you're just like, oh, you really need this, like poke them out. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But I think it's the how you're able to hire and then train the staff, which is the hard part. Being if it's just yourself, it's very different.
Right, for sure. So let's talk about that. Entrepreneurs making that leap into hiring is always scary. And especially for you, you need those, licensed professionals to, complement what you're doing. What is your interview strategy? And, what are the most important factors for you when you hire new employees?
Um, Given for me, depending on your based on your business is, but a lot of them, I think in general, because I'm a service business, all the service business, the core is the soft skill.
Hmm.
How are they presentable? Are they able to talk to the client? Are they able to make conversation or build that trust between the client? I think that's the soft skill I'm looking for the most. And then, because you already have their resume and they say where they work and then their expertise already, so it's a soft skill that you can somewhat train, but it's really hard to train. It has to be more of innate and personality based. So I think that's what I look for the most. And then after they pass that test, I mean, this is for the in-person interview. So once they pass that already, then I would actually have them like do like the actual expertise, like poke on me, like see how their IV skill is or their knowledge of XYZ. But given the nature of this job, it's more of the soft skill because you already scan the resume and they meet all the qualifications already.
Yeah, I think that's a great reminder. I mean, soft skills are really important when you are trying to interview and find the fit. So, what is your kind of focus? Is it more mission and vision and values focused? Is it more on their customer service? When you're looking at those soft skills, what, are you focused on?
For me, I'm more focused on that client relationships. Are they able to talk to the client? Are they able to educate? Do they care enough to educate? I think that's what, because I think a lot of time being in the medical field, people get run down. They forget that other person is a human being and they are hurt and they need help. And so some people just come in, they want to tell you all their problems. Is my staff able to sit there and listen to all that and trying to figure out what's wrong with them or how can they we can help them? So it's more of the compassion I'm looking for, because a lot of time they're desensitized already, so it's hard to find those compassionate individuals for especially from IV Nutrition Gilbert.
Yeah, I think that's a great reminder. Bedside manner is a thing, and it's really important. And making sure that your staff aligns with how you're trying to present is definitely going to help you to be more successful. So, this question I ask everybody as we end the interview: if you could bippity boppity boop, and entrepreneurs could learn things from you overnight, what would you love to share to help them do better business?
I think how I think it's the adaptability they can learn from me, like how quickly can you adapt and uh, create, adapting and creating. So like having if you're in one business industry, it's very easy just to open multiple businesses. But over the last 20 years of my life, or 15 years or so, I've multiple businesses in different industries. So I think that what they can learn from me is the adaptability, as well as thriving from that adaptability into creating your own messaging or own individual from those to differentiate yourself.
I think that's a great reminder. When we're talking about, adaptability, entrepreneurship is different day to day. And I think that's a great reminder that you're going to have to figure it out, no matter what it is. So, Lynn, how do people work with you? How do they come to Ivy Nutrition Gilbert? Tell me all the things.
We do have our social media. So on the Facebook is IV Nutrition Gilbert, or you can also find us on the website at ivnutrition.com, and then location would be Gilbert. But that's how you can find us through social media: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, as well as website.
Perfect. Amazing. Lynn, thank you so much for, giving us this information about IV nutrition and how important it is. Oxidative stress is a thing. And, your cells remember. And I think those are all great reminders. Thank you so much
Okay.
for being on the show today.
Thank you, Nicole, for having me.
Of course. So, again, this is Nicole's Business Notebook, where we are interviewing my business besties about what they're doing, what their expertise is, and how we can all do better business together. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.